Esperado. Good evening. Oh. Thank you, whoever's doing the 100. I appreciate it. Don't feel like it's a like and sub.
Insecure, coercive control, and narcissism go hand in hand. I think his mom is just one just because, yeah. Oh, we're not fans of Roberta here. No. Me, no likey. I think so too, yeah.
Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it.
Yes, sending love to the Petito family. They're amazing people. We see them all over online, but it's rough, I'm sure. The video should be used in police training to show how a nurse can save a life. I agree, Jim. My sister hid it for years because she didn't want me doing life. She was able to finally get away. 90% of the women don't, right?
Yo, 361. Let's keep doing this. Let's get me to 400. Hello, Stephanie. I hope everybody's doing good.
That is true, Tony.
No, I live alone.
And he was like at the right angle, so you could only sometimes you keep his hands sticking up when you're taking that photo. And that was really nice. We got there loud. People were like, "How did you get over there? Can I go?" And the guy tried to come our way.
There's some treacherous terrain out there. There is.
There's no topic. It's just open topic. Just chill and I really no topic.
Yeah, thank you.
Is my mom home? No, she's not home. I live alone.
I agree, Tahira.
Everyone's got to get that picture, right?
Yeah.
They want to be able to recreate it. But yeah, definitely drink your water, especially on that hike.
At my house, my apartment.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's not an enjoyable hike for anybody. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it that way.
Let's see. Oh, I'm in my house. Can you hear me?
He said he doesn't like to post things, but you're the one that's posting for him.
My mom's in her house and I'm in mine's. How you doing, Owen? My mother's in her house and I'm in mine's house. I'm in my apartment. Do you get it? I'm good. I'll be good once I monetize. I'll be better. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. How you doing? Hendrix. Put on my glasses to read the comments. Good. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I need to get monetized as soon as possible. Yep. Why you say that? Why you say it's been one of these crazy days?
But it was June 2021, however, when they left.
Okay, so you can go watch Plunder's. I think there's more of the Plunder does her commentary, but the rest of it I think is just them basically being separated. We can watch a little bit of
He
it.
doesn't want to not be with him tonight.
I think it cuts off.
That's what we said. Yeah. So that's like a call supervisor.
Oh, that sucks.
No, it's okay.
Just a little back pain, but I'm good.
I just love service.
We're probably not going to have any better.
He's like so excited.
Yeah.
How you doing, Carlos Ramirez?
It's huge, man.
Are you the famous Carlos Ramirez for baseball?
You might be able to get out texting.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But just to reiterate, Gabby, these might be your only two options. Either you go to jail or we separate you for tonight and you're in a much better place tomorrow to figure it out together. I'll give you some time.
I'm good.
Yeah, I wasn't very nice about the police department in my last life because the abuser thinks they got away with it. Abby wasn't giving him her undivided attention. Yeah, I agree, Kim. So he's jealous of everything she did.
Yep.
The discussion was turning on her in itself. Right. I think I remember the cop drives him to the hotel. Yeah, he does. You're right, Laura. Yeah, I don't know what all these side conversations about whatever they're having.
So you're an animal, you saying?
I just made a decision. I don't think we should give them slack. Millions of people saw the body cam footage before she was found. Right. Speculated her demise right off the bat. If the police come by in a hotel, how did Gabby end up with him? They met up, right? The next day. Was it the next day?
Yeah.
That wasn't very good advice. Yeah, they shouldn't even be giving advice on stuff they're giving advice on. And then they're a hot mess. Which is why we're going to go over the investigative report on the Moab Police Department. It's like
distracting him by hitting him, and then he probably looked at her, and that's why the mark is on the window side. But she said
she picked him up
because she was distracting him by hitting him.
You're a furry? What does that mean?
She thought that he wasn't listening to her. The assault is just down to dumb off, reports for violence, and bodily injury to another. Both bodily definition says bodily injury is infliction of pain or physical impairment.
She goes and picks him up, yeah, and then he kills her. Wow.
So,
I'm not searching that up.
Wow.
just
The rest of this kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie.
you get a hold of your dad?
I
This
think
was
yeah,
annoying.
for a few minutes.
For a few months. He'll tell you what the plan is. But whatever happens from here on out, learn from this. Do better than what happened today, okay? For both of you.
You didn't learn from it. She's dead. They're both dead.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That was my hope that I would help a little bit. Yeah. And we've got more water. So you don't have to guzzle it, but you don't have to
YouTube.
nurse it either. We can get you some more.
This is very sad.
And Gabby and Brian,
So we find out, that's when they get separated. It is really sad. I know.
Also, yeah, I know
Emotions are all over the place.
about
Yeah,
the
they are.
Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie situation,
They are.
the domestic violence.
Okay, we're gonna read through just some of this report. It's 100 and something pages, so we're gonna do part 1 tonight and then part 1 tomorrow. This was kind of talks about that night too, this day that they were arrested or separated by the police department. It's an investigative report of the review of August 12th, the Petito laundry incident. It's really interesting. I read through some of it. I was shook. Because it goes in line with what I was saying on my other live, that police department totally failed them. Could it have been possible that Gabby could still be alive? Part of me thinks, yeah, the laughing is a coping mechanism.
Gabby should still be alive.
If she would have just called her parents, they could have come taking her away, right? Right, you make up, you fight, it's gonna get better. I know. And how much you want to please that person too, right? Whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally. It's so sad, the cycle of domestic violence, right? Okay, so we're gonna read just a couple pages of this, and then we'll do the other part too and finish it tomorrow. After a formal complaint was filed with the Moab Police Department, an independent law enforcement agency has completed a thorough review of the August 12th, 2001 domestic violence incident involving Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. The independent agency investigative report finds that the officers who responded to the incident made several unintentional mistakes that stemmed from the fact that officers failed to cite Ms. Petito for domestic violence. The city acknowledges that this finding may raise questions, and the issue is examined extensively in this investigative report. The report recommends improvements to both the policies and the training of the Moab City Police Department. These recommendations include providing additional training in domestic violence investigation, as well as additional legal training to ensure officers understand state laws and statutes, conducting an overall policy
during that
review,
week,
conducting a
2
software
cops were
review,
actually
and
killed
strengthening the review process for incident reports.
in New York.
The investigative report also finds that a statement was never obtained from the original 911 caller and recommends that be done to make the incident report more complete. The city intends to implement the report's recommendations.
Responding to a domestic
Based on the
violence.
report's finding, the city of Moab believes our officers showed kindness, respect, and empathy in their handling of this incident. As the Moab City Police Department continues its mission to serve our community, efforts are underway to provide additional resources and tools to assist them in addressing domestic violence incidents. Plans are in place to add a trained domestic violence specialist to oversee incidents investigated by Moab police officers. Well, just a little too late. Well, we will also implement added and ongoing training and testing to ensure that officers understand policies and procedures. The city of Moab sends our sincere condolences to the Petito family. Our hearts go out to them as they continue to deal with the tragic loss of their daughter. Let's see. Introduction. On September 27th, 2021, I was asked to conduct an independent investigation into the way Moab Police Department handled a domestic violence incident that occurred on August 12th, 2021. The incident has been documented by Moab police officers Pratt and Robbins as identified by Moab PD, case number, etc. There were also two additional officers on scene, Park Ranger Melissa Holes, that's who we saw in the video, and Park Ranger Ryan Krall. The incident involved Brian Christopher Laundrie and Gabriella Gabby Venora Petito. I was asked to conduct this investigation by Chief Brett Edge and Assistant Chief Braden Palmer. Officer Pratt has worked with the Moab Police Department intermittently since July of 2018. This included part-time employment and full-time employment. Officer Pratt returned full-time with Moab Police Department in December of 2020. Has approximately 16 years of law enforcement. Officer Robbins was hired in May of 2021, had no prior law enforcement experience, and at the time of the incident, Officer Robbins was on the final phase of his field training program. So the officer who was there wasn't even fully trained yet in his position. I'm shook. I've been forwarded an email from the complainant attorney, Tanya Reeves, which I have attached to this report. Chief Edge indicated the Moab Police Department received the complaint and they believe there's value and insight to be gained from having an independent investigation that will ultimately provide insight and improve the department's responses to domestic violence cases moving forward. The investigator in this case is Captain Brandon Ratcliffe, who is employed by the Prior City Police Department.
When did you go? I wasn't on. Was she nice to you?
There are many what-ifs that have been presented in itself as part of the investigation. The primary one being, would Gabby be alive today if the case was handled differently? That is an impossible question to answer, despite it being the answer many people want to know. Nobody knows, and nobody will ever know the answer to that question. My job is to provide information into the details of the investigation and if it was handled appropriately. Hey, Alex, good to see you. Most victims wind up dead. She's dead, therefore she's a victim. She was definitely the ultimate victim, in my opinion. Yeah. The investigation arises after Moab City Police Department, this is a synopsis, received a complaint about the way Moab Police was the case handled by Moab Police. The complaint was received by Moab Police Department. I can't even talk. You guys are distracting me. I don't think anyone would take the stance. Interesting. Differing opinions are welcome. Okay, back to this. The complaint was received by Moab Police Department on September 21st, 2021 by Tanya Reeves. A follow-up complaint was received by Tanya Reeves on October 1st, 2021. I was asked to complete this investigation on September 27th, 2021. A summary of the facts in this case will be detailed below. The summary will come from information obtained from the police reports, dispatch notes, and audio witness statements and body-worn camera video of the incident. Initial call to dispatch.
Oops, something happened. I pressed. That's not it. What happened here? Thank you. No. I didn't change it twice. Mm-mm. How's everybody's day though?
Behaving. Right.
Okay, break. I'm waiting for the gift.
When someone ends your life, you're a victim.
Yeah.
I agree with that, Tony.
I've been a victim of domestic violence. Trust me.
If that's the case, he could leave instead of taking her life. She is a victim. She lost her life.
No.
I had a relationship like that. If I shoved a man, he shoved me back. He wouldn't kill me. Hey, Francis. Good to see you. Welcome.
I don't put my hands on women.
Patty. Wait, he unalived her, right? He lied because he said he didn't have a phone. Gabby was defending herself. Do you think Watts was a victim too? Absolutely not. I wouldn't even think that if I was. Brian locked her out of the van. Yeah, the locking her out is like, okay. Amber Heard is an example. Make her. I know, I've got behind in the comments. Okay, let's continue. Brian said the injury near his eye was from Gabby's phone. Brian said Gabby had jumped on him and was swinging when he pushed her. Brian stated Gabby also wore rings, and the combination of the phone, her rings, and her nails was what likely caused his injuries. Parker Ranger Ryan Crawl points out scratches on the left side of Brian's neck, left side of his nose, scratch near the
She should have
center of
been
his face,
arrested
and
then.
bruise
They
and
both
bleeding
should
on the
have been
right side of
arrested,
his
in my
head.
opinion.
Officer Robin finds an additional injury on Brian's right tricep area. Brian said he was not in any pain and that he was not complaining. When asked about medication, Brian said he doesn't take any, but said Gabby has told him in the past to take Xanax because he has high anxiety. When asked if Gabby takes medication, he replies while chuckling and smirking, quote unquote, she's just crazy. Brian then immediately takes back the comment by saying he is kidding. In regards to the
He
driving
shouldn't say
behavior,
that. That's
Brian
fucked
stated
up.
that he hit the curb because Gabby grabbed and turned the wheel. Brian said Gabby told him, quote unquote, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, when she grabbed the wheel. When asked about his speed, Brian stated it was probably from the adrenaline of getting pulled over and Gabby grabbing the wheel, further stating he was still shaken up from everything that had just happened. Brian apologized multiple times for his driving, stating that if he was driving too fast before ever getting pulled over, he was sorry. Brian said they were headed back to the park to get water. Gabby Petito's statement to law enforcement. While still in the vehicle, Gabby is asked why she was crying. Gabby stated that they have been fighting in the morning, stating that they had personal issues. Gabby states, I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry. We kind of know a little bit of this. Once separated, Gabby said she was having a very stressed morning, later confirming they have not been drinking and that they did not drink. Gabby said she was trying to get work done and was apologizing to Brian after she had thrown a bunch of stuff in the back of the van. Gabby said she gets so stressed out and has OCD. Gabby further stated that she has a mean attitude but was not trying to be mean about straightening things up. Gabby said she was apologizing but said it in a mean tone, and Brian got frustrated with her and locked her out of the van and told her to go take a breather. Gabby said she wanted to get going and said they were out of the water and they were going to the park to refill the water. Gabby states she's trying to start a blog and is building her website and has been stressed about it. Gabby stated she had so much work she was doing on her computer and said Brian doesn't really believe that she can do any of it, which was upsetting to her. Gabby states they had been fighting all morning and that Brian wouldn't let her in the van before. I'm just like shook. We've seen this in the body cam, but I'm shook. Isn't it interesting to like watch the body cam footage and stuff online in videos, but then when you actually have the documents, it's so different, right? That's why I always read the documents. When asked why Brian wouldn't let her in the van, Gabby said Brian told her she needed to calm down. Gabby said she's perfectly calm and states Brian really stresses her out and says it has been a rough morning. Gabby said Brian walked away to take a breather, but she didn't want to. Gabby said she wanted to sit in the van because all of her stuff was in there. Gabby stated she had been working in the van and that is where she wanted to be. Gabby said Brian told her to relax, but she didn't want to, so she got real mad. Gabby was asked about the injuries on her left cheek and left arm. Gabby initially said she wasn't sure what caused it, stating the incident happened really fast. Gabby said she was trying to get back in the van and said that Brian's backpack was what got her. Gabby was told about witnesses that reported Brian had hit her. Gabby responded, quote unquote, to be honest, I definitely hit him first. Gabby says she had slapped Brian a couple of times and Brian kept telling her to shut up. Gabby said she hit Brian as, quote unquote, I was trying to get him to stop telling me to calm down. Gabby said Brian reached by grabbing her arm so I wouldn't slap him. Officer Pratt asked if Brian only grabbed her and she said, yeah. Officer Pratt then asked, did he hit you though? Gabby replied saying, I guess, but I hit him first. So in other terms, she's basically saying, yeah, I hit him, but because he hit me first. So is she the primary aggressor? No, she's not. And we're all entitled to our own opinions. I don't knock that. Any opinion is welcome on my chat. I think you guys know me well enough, right? But we will stay respectful to Gabby and her family. Absolutely. Gabby stated Brian grabbed my face, I guess, while demonstrating the action. Gabby states, like, he didn't punch me in the face. Gabby said Brian grabbed her face and said she could feel a cut on her left cheek. Gabby stated when she touches it, it burns. When asked about the van hitting the curb, Gabby said, quote unquote, I hit him, and stated that that was the reason Brian hit the curb. Gabby stated she was hitting Brian while he was driving, but not a lot, yeah. Not a lot, but yeah. Gabby said it didn't last long, and she said she saw the police car behind them, and she demonstrated throwing a punch. Gabby said it was when she saw the police lights that she hit Brian and said, you're so stupid, or you're an idiot. Gabby said she did not touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second.
I don't see
I just
Gabby
saw the lights
hitting
come
him.
on.
She's
Gabby
not a mean
demonstrated the
person.
punch she did to Brian while stating, you're an idiot. Gabby was asked again if she ever touched the steering wheel, and Gabby said, no, I did not touch the steering wheel at all. Gabby was asked if she takes any medication, and she stated she didn't. Gabby said she does yoga as a coping mechanism and states that she has high anxiety and OCD. When asked if Brian is patient with her, Gabby said, yeah, but I get it. Just makes me upset. I know he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot because I have a lot of anxiety.
They should have
And he
been,
definitely has
I
anxiety
don't know.
too.
I don't want to say anything offensive.
So mental health plays a factor in this, right? A huge role. And what they were both dealing with as individuals and coming together as a couple that leads to domestic violence, right? And I think these comments like, I have anxiety and OCD, and it's so vague, right? And it's not all black and white with mental health. We talk about that here a lot on my channel. And I feel like these are all such red flags. Like,
Yeah, that's where we can tell.
there was other issues I think that they had individually, and then coming together, both going through mental health issues, I don't think was the best, like, mix, clearly, right?
We should not have been together, but
When somebody grabs you by your face, that's a threat. The next action they would take, right? Even if she is, it doesn't give them the right to take her life.
no.
Right. Okay, moving on. Redacted written and verbal witness statement. So this is probably the person that called 911. Officer Pratt called one of the witnesses redacted via cell phone. Redacted also provided a sworn statement later on. Redacted stated he had observed Brian and Gabby involved in a dispute. Redacted stated from what he could tell that it appeared at one point they may have been fighting over a phone, and Redacted thought it may have been Gabby's phone. Redacted reported Brian was trying to keep Gabby from getting into the van. Redacted said Brian was sitting in the driver's seat while Gabby was trying to get into the van through the driver's side door.
But it's her
Redacted
car as
said
well, so.
Gabby hit Brian a few times in the arm and or face while trying to get into the vehicle. Redacted said Gabby forced her way over to Brian's lap via the driver's side door and got into the passenger seat. Redacted heard Gabby tell Brian, why do you have to be so mean? Redacted stated he wasn't sure if it was play fighting, stating Gabby's punches were nothing like slugs to the face, but Redacted felt something was off and had a weird vibe. Redacted stated he wasn't sure how serious the incident was to him, but it seemed like Brian was trying to leave Gabby and possibly take her cell phone. The cell phone was an issue, right? He didn't have one, and he lies about it, but again, I'm curious if they say it in the documentary, what day she texted her ex-boyfriend, because if it was the same day, I believe truly in my heart that a lot of this started from him finding that.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys.
Her texting her ex-boyfriend,
I
or no?
appreciate it.
I felt like that would have set
it makes me
him
sad,
off.
but I don't have people here.
It's possible she feared what he would do if she had told the police the truth. So many possibilities. Thank you, Natasha. I really appreciate that. Yes, please hit the like button, subscribe, do all them things. Yes, thank you. He was controlling her, yeah. He was mad about her phone. Like, yo. You know what I mean? Get a drink. Okay. This is a really good report, you guys. Like, thanks for hanging out and reading it. Like, it's so good. It's really long. I have to break it up into 2 parts, but it's worth it, I think, to get all the information, right, from all angles. Like, we see the body cam footage. We hear from her parents. But her parents claim they didn't know there was DV. So really, they only know to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Then we see interviews and other content creators, and we saw the autopsy. But I think this is such an important document.
Of course. Yeah.
Because an investigation on the Moab Police Department, the people who were there in the body cam, right, and how they failed. And we all believe that, is it possible Gabby could have been still alive? Sure. Was it fate? Maybe. If you want to talk about spirituality, I don't know. That could be a whole ass conversation. But I think this report is so important, and I'm surprised that I hadn't heard about it. Officer Pratt asked if Redacted ever saw Brian strike Gabby. Redacted hesitated in his answer and stated he maybe saw a push or shove, but nothing like a full punch to the face or anything. Officer Pratt asked if Redacted could tell if the push or shove was an aggressive action or a defensive maneuver. Redacted wasn't sure, stating it was a good question and wasn't entirely sure what was going on. Redacted said it appeared to him that Brian was trying to close off the passenger side of the vehicle and close things up. Redacted said Brian put a backpack or something on the back of the vehicle. Redacted said Brian was stepping into the vehicle and Gabby was out trying to get in. Redacted said he didn't see anything that was Brian kicking Gabby or hitting Gabby, further stating the fighting was kind of light and they were laughing. Redacted again said that Brian was in the driver's seat and had the driver door open and Gabby was hitting Brian near the arm or maybe in the face with an open hand and was telling Brian to let her in. Officer Pratt made arrangements to pick up a statement from Redacted at a later time, and Redacted said he would start writing down what he remembered while it was still fresh in his memory. Redacted said he was casually observing the incident and said again that something seemed off. Redacted's statement has been attached to the report. From the police department, what was the failure? All of it, all across the board. Not arresting them, letting them get back together the next day. If her parents had been involved, would she have gone and picked them up the next day? Probably not. She probably would have left their parents, right? Like, welcome, Patty. Welcome to being a member. Welcome to Milliverse. I was surprised there's no history of mental health issues for either person, possibly undiagnosed. I believe that. I agree. Thank you, BC girl, for supporting. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, BC girl. I'm a nerd. What do you mean, number 7? What do you mean she's an adult? She's an adult, so she's, calling her parents? Wait, pause. You're gonna learn a little something about me. I'm full as grown. I'll still call my dad to come bail me out. Honey, you better believe that. And he absolutely would. Whether I was Gabby's age or now or 75.
Yeah, parents will
The
have
failure when won the lawsuit was a failure to arrest. Well, failure to arrest, yeah, and act like medical health professionals. Oh, thank you, Tipsy. Officer Robbins is the investigator officer in the case and was assisted by Officer Pratt. It is my understanding and assumption through watching the body-worn camera videos that Officer Pratt is more experienced than Officer Robbins and was taking an active role in guiding Officer Robbins throughout the investigation. At the end of the investigation, when another call came out, Officer Pratt asked Officer Robbins if he would feel more comfortable taking the call that just came out, leaving Officer Pratt to conclude this investigation. Ultimately, it was decided by Officer Robbins would conclude the case and that Officer Pratt left the scene. Officer Robbins advised Gabby that she was not going to get charged with anything, but stated he had to separate her and Brian for the night. Officer Robbins tells Brian the same thing, stating that since Gabby did not intend to hurt him, technically speaking, it does not fit the letter of the code. So he was not charging Gabby with domestic violence assault. Officer Robbins advises them both not to have any contact with each other until the following day and allows Gabby to take custody of the van while Officer Robbins transports Brian to the Bowen Motel. During the investigation, Officer Pratt spoke to Redacted, Brian, and Gabby to gather the facts of the case. Officer Robbins spoke with Brian and Gabby and took photographs of Brian's injuries and both of their driver's license. Summary and evidence. Thank you, Pantera. Nerds. Yay. Alfred, welcome. Is this your first time here, Alfred? Welcome to Melly's channel, my channel. I don't know why I'm talking about third person. I was going to say, welcome to Mellyverse. Nerds are hot. That's funny. Anyways, welcome, Alfred. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yay! Jen, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. That means a lot. All of you supporting my channel. Jen said, I love you. Called my dad last week and after your live hanging out tomorrow. I want to hear all about it. You need to update me. I need to email you and give you my number so you can tell me all about it. That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope you guys have a good time. It's important. Life is too short. Don't know if I was going as far the whole, right? Okay, let's get through. We're gonna read like maybe 10 more pages and then we'll read the rest of it tomorrow. It's long, but it's really good. The section will include the initial complaint with applicable with Utah code sections and applicable with Moab Police Department policies. If there are any other policy sections outside of the domestic violence policy, those sections will be addressed. In total, this will highlight all the sections that I will attempt to investigate and, if possible, provide a conclusion on whether or not there was a violation, whether it be of law or policy. Since there was a formal complaint, these complaints will be noted first. So they're going to go through complaints, and if it's unfounded, it means investigation. We're going to do a little like take note. Unfounded means investigation finds there was no violation. Exonerated means investigation finds a violation that did occur, but it was justified, lawful, and proper. Not sustained means the investigation finds there is insufficient evidence to sustain or exonerate. And sustained means investigation finds sufficient evidence to establish that the code or policy was violated. I'm looking for the sustained. I would like to know what codes or policy were violated. Formal complaints. Number 1, an officer described his wife's private medical diagnosis and prescribed medication with Brian Laundrie while transporting him to the police station, which was captured on body cam and subsequently released without redaction. We saw that, right?
You don't do that.
That's wild, because we all been talking about what we see that was wrong with all of the body cam. Brian was not transported to the police station. He was transported to a local motel. Moab City Police Policy, Chapter 342, addresses the information that is prohibited for release. Line item H states, quote unquote, personal information of an officer or the officer's immediate family member. All recordings made by members on any department-issued device at any time and any recording made while acting in the official capacity of this department, regardless of the ownership of the device it was made on, shall remain in the property of the department. Members shall have no expectation of privacy or ownership interest in content of these recordings. Moab City Police Policy states, Chapter 422 states, all recordings should be reviewed by the custodian of records prior to public release. Recordings that are unreasonably violate a person's privacy or a sense of dignity should not be publicly released unless disclosure is required by law or by the court. This specific complaint is regarding personal information that was discussed by Officer Robbins regarding his wife. The complaint states Officer Robbins disclosed his wife's medical diagnosis and prescribed medication with Brian Laundrie. At no point during their discussion did Officer Robbins specifically disclose any of these things. Officer Robbins states his wife has anxiety and takes medication for it. Although the line can be drawn and an assumption can be made that there is a diagnosis because of taking medication, we don't know what the actual diagnosis is or what medication she is even taking, or if the medication is even prescribed. I was also unable to find anywhere in the Moab City Department policy where it states what constitutes personal information and where the line is drawn on what cannot and cannot be released as it relates to that. Officer Robbins and Officer Pratt spent approximately 75 minutes with Brian and Gabby and demonstrated throughout their contact their ability to have an authentic and respectful conversation regarding the incident. During this interaction, Officer Robbins and Officer Pratt felt comfortable enough to share details regarding their personal lives that related to Brian and Gabby's relationship and this incident. Officer Robbins is aware his body-worn camera is on and recording and also knows, or should know, he has no expectation of privacy as it relates to his law enforcement interactions with the public. Additionally, while knowing his body-worn camera is on, if Officer Robbins was comfortable sharing generic details he did with Brian, it would be difficult to say that he unreasonably violated his wife's privacy or sense of dignity unless the complaint was made by Officer Robbins' wife herself. Before I move on to number 2, let me touch base with you guys. Had no posture with Brian. I agree. Professionals should never bring their personal lives into any situation. I agree with that. I agree with that, Kim. Number 2, several officers discussed the legislator's intent to remove discretion from responding officers in suspected domestic violence calls and strategize around how they can evade the imposition of legislative intent to arrest and or cite suspects. This concern is addressed later on the report. To provide a brief response, I would likely disagree that the officers strategized a way around the statute. I would say the officers made a mistake by not reading the entire assault statute as well as misinterpreting the language in the statute. Number 3, an officer appears to carefully and deliberately coach Gabby Petito to answer questions regarding intent in manner that would allow the officer to avoid issuing her citation or arrest. I don't agree with that. All the cop did was refers to his ex-wife. Yeah, but like talking about diagnosis and like medications, I feel like, I don't know, is that a little personal?
It is personal.
An officer appears to, I already read that part, sorry. Some of the statements made by Officer Pratt to Gabby during his questioning are below. Officer Pratt tells Gabby he has a question for her and how she answered the question determined what would happen next, and further states that she was the only one that could answer the question. Think very hard before you answer, said Officer Pratt. He says, when you slapped him those times, were you attempting to cause him physical pain or physical impairment? Gabby answers immediately, shaking her head to the side and stating no. Officer Pratt says, what were you attempting to do? What was the reason behind the slapping and stuff? What were you attempting to accomplish by slapping him? Gabby replies, I was trying to get him to stop telling me to calm down. Officer Pratt then says out loud, well, it doesn't sound to me like she attempted to injure him. I asked Officer Pratt if he recalled the manner in which he questioned Gabby regarding her intent. Officer Pratt stated he recalled telling Gabby to not answer quickly and to think about the questions before answering them. Officer Pratt said, I do recall telling her to think about it because it's important and I think it's a fair thing to tell somebody. Officer Pratt said, you have to assume that Gabby knew what Officer Pratt wanted her to give him, which he never provided her. Officer Pratt said, what I didn't want to see that day was her take all of the criminal responsibility for the incident upon herself at 22 years old. I asked Officer Pratt if he deliberately coached Gabby in her responses to his questions regarding her intent. Officer Pratt said he had no idea what she was going to say. Officer Pratt acknowledged that he could see why some people might think he coached her. Officer Pratt said, I truly did not know what she was going to do next. I was afraid that she was going to say something that was going to make her go to jail. I didn't want her to go to jail, but I would have taken her to jail if she had said the other thing, and I don't consider giving someone fair warning to think about the answer because it's an important question to be coaching. Officer Pratt stated multiple times that he wanted an honest answer out of Gabby. Officer Pratt said the way he asked the questions was to stress the importance to Gabby to think about the question and provide an honest answer. Officer Pratt said, maybe I coached her into giving me an honest answer because that's what I was wanting. That's what I wanted, and honestly, that's haunted me. Her saying, I just wanted him to stop telling me to calm down. She's little. I have daughters. I can imagine them in this situation. I can totally see one of my daughters just wanting to stop telling them to calm down. I believe what she said. I believed it then. I still do, says Officer Pratt. He said he was not deliberately coaching Gabby and just wanted an honest answer. Officer Robbins was present during the above questioning. I asked Officer Robbins if he recalled this conversation, and he said vaguely. I asked if Officer Robbins recalled the manner in which the questions were asked. Officer Robbins said he didn't and only remembered Gabby being asked about the intent and her denying the intent to to hurt Brian. But how do you guys feel about Officer Pratt? They all ask them leading questions. I agree, Kim. It's wrong AF. I agree, being bio girl. Dude talking about his old lady and comparing and comforting was incredibly out of pocket. I think so too. It is personal, but cops are human too. Well, then it goes back to they should be trained. I don't know. But exposing blood is harming. Sounds like little Brian was gaslighted big time. The body cam always felt like it was boys against girl, in my opinion, right, ATS? Smog Dog sounds like my ex. The cops buddied up with Brian and then tried to relate to Brian by comparing their wife's medical issues to Gabby being abused. I agree, ATS. These cops are very generous to her. I never heard a cop be so kind to me to help me not get arrested, but hindsight, it wasn't kind, right? There were witnesses who stated he was the initial aggressor. Whether she said she did or did not doesn't make it true. Right. Okay, so even though she admitted that she was aggressor, y'all saying that, yeah, she did. I think two things can be true at once in this situation. Number 4, an officer refers to Gabby Petito as blonde hair, blue-eyed girl who is 110 pounds, dripping wet, and refers to Brian Laundrie as a strong guy who can defend, because she was sweating, who can defend himself, which is not relevant evidence when evaluating the protocol of legislator mandated actions in domestic violence call. Further, it is unclear why the eye and hair color of one of the subjects would be material to any analysis and may suggest the officers were operating under a confirmation bias or that they were unconsciously influenced by stereotypes about who is involved in domestic violence. The complainant, Tanya Reeves, sent a follow-up email apologizing and stated she misattributed the blonde hair, blue eye remark, which is correct. She states is in her follow-up email that the information was said by Brian, not the officers. The first part of this complaint is addressed in further detail in this report. Number 5, an officer makes disparaging references to the legislation relevant to this call in the presence of the subjects, claiming that he cannot treat the subjects differently because of the gender of the primary aggressor, and then proceeds to do that precisely. While reviewing the body-worn camera footage, this topic is discussed on multiple occasions. Officer Pratt discusses with Brian and Gabby and the other officers the lack of discretion in these cases. When describing this to Brian and Gabby, he explained that it doesn't matter the gender and or the size of whoever the primary aggressor is, or if the injuries are minimal. Officer Pratt states that they have to treat all the domestic violence assault cases the same. Officer Pratt tells Gabby that the law doesn't allow them to treat people differently, stating, even if it makes no sense that you probably could not physically destroy this man the way he could if he attacked you, we can't treat you differently. He further tells Gabby that the law was made in Utah because, quote unquote, they don't trust the police to make good decisions because too many cops have made bad decisions. I must have missed that in the body cam. He goes on to say that this is why they took discretion away on domestic violence cases, stating that whoever the primary aggressor is has to be charged. Officer Pratt tells Gabby, we literally have no choice. He does not want to press charges. We don't have any choice in this. He further states that if he had discretion, he would separate them for the night and tell them to stop hitting each other. But I lawfully don't have discretion here. While an argument could be made that his statements were disparaging, it was done in the context of trying to explain what law enforcement could and could not do. As far as the officers doing precisely what they said they couldn't do, that is explained in further detail in this report. They are a trip. The officer references a 911 call that identified Brian Laundrie pushing Gabby Petito away from him, and then says there's a second witness who they haven't spoken with yet, but may corroborate the claim. Should the officer have obtained the statement from the second witness or listened to the 911 call before determining who was a primary aggressor? Haven't we been questioning this? Like, we're literally like, okay, wait, she admits to it. I see you guys, I see you. Yeah, she admits to putting his hands on him, but I probably would too. If I was defending myself or being abused, I probably would too, because if we were to take it to court and I lied, that probably wouldn't be very good, right? I think hindsight and right, 2020. I agree with you, BC Girl. I agree. So that's a good question in this investigative report. Should the officer have obtained a statement from the second witness before determining who was the primary aggressor? There was only one 911 call in reference to this incident. That caller reported Brian slapping Gabby. The other witness was found on the scene at the Moonflower and provided a verbal and written statement later on. The issue is addressed more in detail later in this report, but in short, the answer would be yes. The officer should have obtained a statement from the 911 caller, redacted, before making a final determination if it was possible for them to do so. Investigative number 7. The officers twisted themselves into knots trying to find a way to avoid effecting an arrest citation because of their sympathy for this couple and their assessment that no one was actually in danger, which is precisely what the legislator attempted to curtail, substituting the judgment of the officers for the mandates of the legislation. The investigative police person in this document says, I believe it is clear from the body-worn camera footage that stating the officers twisted themselves into knots trying to find a way to avoid effecting an arrest is a gross mischaracterization of what happened. Law enforcement is being second-guessed now more than ever, which has led officers to take more caution and time before making a decision to try and avoid the inevitable second-guessing. These officers were authentic in their interactions and treated Brian and Gabby with kindness and respect. I would say the officers displayed sympathy and empathy for the couple, which undoubtedly led to Officer Pratt second-guessing himself, despite the fact that he said multiple times what needed to happen. Officer Pratt resorted to calling a supervisor and then rereading the assault statute. From there, the statute was not fully read, and what was read was misinterpreted, which led to not arresting anyone in this incident. So, let's reread that. Officer Pratt resorted to calling a supervisor and then rereading the assault statute. From there, the statute was not fully read, and what was read led to not arresting anyone. So he didn't know, he didn't understand it, he misinterpreted it, so that's why they didn't arrest anyone, and it could have possibly saved Gabby's life.
Mm-hmm. My neck hurts.
I'm not going to go down without a fight, right, Jahira? Melly, it's okay for a girl to slap a guy, but men should not hit women or take her stuff. All she wanted was to do her YouTube videos and have fun doing it. I agree. Solid Man Studio Productions. I hate saying it, but at the same time, I don't hate to say it. If she admitted to hitting him also, they could have both been taken in. Maybe Gabby would have called her parents. Things could have changed. Yeah, I said that earlier. I'm like, if her parents would have got her, then she maybe wouldn't have driven to pick him up, and then he wouldn't have killed her, right? Yes, that's a good point, Jem. And I have anxiety, but it doesn't make me assault people. Going to jail might have led to Gabby's parents being notified. I agree. ATS. The main decision became they were white, young, upper middle class, and they thought they were just innocent. Right? Jem's like, but wait, I didn't get no breaks. Facts. Thank you, Mary D. I appreciate you. It could have changed the course, but that wasn't her fate. So sad. I know, ATS. It's so sad. Okay, let's see. We have a few more pages. The officer concluded in the report that he did not believe the incident rose to the level of domestic assault so much as the mental health crisis. Have officers received sufficient training in mental illness and domestic violence to accurately make that determination? These are like all the questions we had at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of my other live or this live and the case in general, and probably as we watch the documentary. I was unable to answer this question in full, but asked both officers for an explanation into why they categorized this incident in such a way. Their responses are documented later on in this report. Number 9, one additional concern I wish to add to my complaint is the officer's lack of investigatory follow-up after Gabby told him that Brian had grabbed her face with his fingers, digging into the point of causing a cut on the inside of her cheek. It was hard to discern her exact words, although I did hear the word cut, but she seemed to indicate that her cheek was swelling up or tender, and she cupped it with her hand as she described the injury. The very question the officer asked in response to this was if Brian had been drinking. His very next question returns to the swerve and curb strike incident. In the footage available to me, he never returns to Gabby's allegation of a crime to ask more questions, investigate, or follow up in any manner. The officer seems distracted by the center line swerve and curb strike and the admission that Gabby had punched Brian in the shoulder when the lights were activated. They spend the majority of the investigation pursuing this allegation, while the reason for the initial detention fell by the wayside. Even when Gabby reports a battery that caused injury, her statement is completely ignored because the officers seem to be operating under a confirmation bias that influenced how they interpret the evidence and the theory of the case. Brian was thoroughly examined for evidence, including an examination underneath his clothing for the injuries of which he may be aware. Photographic evidence was obtained, and he was offered EMS services for his injuries. I'm pissed off. Did Gabby get that too?
No.
Did they offer her services we saw the pictures in her? We saw the pictures in the live, right? The other live that I did, where she has like a black eye. None of this appears to have been provided by Gabby Petito, even after she reported a battery resulting in injury. These concerns are addressed in multiple sections throughout this report. Oh, I appreciate you, homie. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. I appreciate you. I hope you have fun. Okay, let's move on. Number 1, the primary duty of law enforcement officers responding to domestic violence call is to protect the victim and enforce the law. That was sustained by this report. In addition to the arrest powers described, when a peace officer responds to a domestic violence call and has probable cause to believe that an act of domestic violence has been committed, the peace officer shall arrest without a warrant or shall issue a citation to any person that the peace officer has probable cause to believe has committed an act of domestic violence. That was sustained. I don't think he said it was his birthday, right? Oh, it is your birthday, homie? It's tomorrow, if I'm remembering correctly. He's probably gone, but I believe it's tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry. The incident from the beginning was classified as an assault. Oh, thank you, homie. Thank you for donating. I appreciate you. And I'm right? You're celebrating your birthday out tonight? Shout out to you. Happy birthday to you. It's tomorrow. If I'm not mistaken. I would say I have a pretty good memory, but yeah, shout out to you if it's your birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday. And thank you for supporting me. I appreciate you. Yeah. I was right. The incident starts with both witnesses who included the witness that called 911 and reported Brian slapping Gabby to a second witness that stated Gabby was hitting Brian and Brian pushed or shoved Gabby. It continued on with the roadside investigation and statements made both by Brian and Gabby. I have already documented that many statements they made to law enforcement. In short, Brian and Gabby each acknowledged a verbal argument that escalated into a physical confrontation. Brian and Gabby each acknowledged getting physical with each other. It was also concluded that Brian and Gabby were cohabitants due to their statements that they were engaged and living together.